let me begin by just saying thank you very much. What we wanted to do, beginning with, is just to tell you a little bit about LoCTA and an introduction to LoCTA Limited and the LoCTA Hub. It was really as long ago, we were 21 years old this year. At the turn of this century, back in 2002, LoCTA was born. It was exclusively for Manchester City Council, and it was just named for locating council tax absconders, i.e. the LoCTA. So Manchester City Council had wanted away, big student community within Manchester, people moving away, moving in and out. And with Manchester and the Association of Greater Manchester Authorities, there's a lot of boundary hopping. Salford and Manchester are almost one city. Salfordians will tell you they're definitely a separate city, which they are, very proudly so. But all the boroughs, Trafford, Manchester, Salford, they're 2, 3, 4 miles apart at any one point. And it was really important that when people were changing premises and everything, that these local council tax absconders were found. So that's how it was born. By 2006, it was such a successful system that it was rolled out to other local authorities, and it was done so to help them increase their revenues and improve their efficiency in tracing debtors and tackling fraud. And it became a go-to system for local authorities, and really it was designed for them, and it was designed almost by them, because as local authorities told us what they needed and what would help them and support them, the full-time developers who were involved and who've always been an integral part of LoCTA, they're the ones that have really designed that system and redesigned the system each and every step of the way to make sure that it is doing the job that local authorities and those working for local authorities need it to do. And that's remained so. And even in times of lockdown, we had 2 full-time developers working on and redeveloping and redesigning the LoCTA Hub so that it works for you. So as I say, those who come on board, we designed it exclusively, and in Scotland we have 26 of the 32 authorities on board with LoCTA licenses. And I'm right in saying, Jackie, I think that that's sort of increasing all the time in terms of interest and the way that we are going. We do hope very soon that you'll all be on board, if you know what I mean, because it is such a successful and is doing such good work within Scotland, helping you do your jobs. I'm going to just switch now. So the LoCTA Hub, let me just show you a little bit about LoCTA Hub. Excuse me a second, get off that. So the LoCTA Hub itself, as I said, has been a fraud identification solution for authorities for quite a long time. What happens with the LoCTA Hub is an authority buys a license, and that one license can be used across all local authority departments. So basically, you're not only sharing your own data, but all those authorities that put data within the LoCTA Hub, they obviously can share it within all the different local authorities. So the current legislation enables any department within a local authority to use the LoCTA Hub. We go by your own GDPR compliance procedures, and you set up those licenses as and how you need them. So in terms of where is LoCTA used, we can use LoCTA Hub across all those different departments should there be a need to do so. And each and every one of those departments will have their own reasons for using it. So for an education department, for example, they might use the education department, will use it for checking administrations live, catchment areas, or where schools reports are. So what we like to do is make sure that that one LoCTA license covers your whole and has all your authority covered. So in business rates, environmental services, finance and procurement, all those different ones. In terms of housing, which obviously comes to you, you can do lots of good things with housing. Check for subletting, confirm the council taxpayer, verify and trace individuals, verify housing applications, check emergency housing for the homeless, check additional occupants. They're all things that you may or may not need as a housing department. when we come to, it's very slow for me. So LoCTA compiles, validates local authority and national data sets. It has lots of different search features, which I'm going to show you. And what we want to do is, I'm going to show you, go back to this. So what we will do is we will show you how your searches and what you may use the LoCTA Hub for when you're doing that. So we're told, and we were told within all this, that with LoCTA and empty homes, the predominant message or the prevalent message is that empty homes cause several problems within neighbourhoods. They can affect and attract crime and antisocial behaviour. They can affect the image of an area. They can devalue surrounding homes, and they can stop people who are homeless or vulnerable from getting a home. Those first four are probably, for me, one of the most disingenuous sorts of reasons for the project that you're running. Okay, we're not doing it for that reason. You're not doing it for that reason, in my opinion. Those are byproducts of what might happen. But what really, really matters is that we are going to, what we want to do is looking at the homeless and the vulnerable and see how we can reuse and how we can help you to find a way of reusing these properties, because that's the reason why LoCTA wants to get involved with this project and why you are. Because what we've seen is the number of people classed as homeless in Scotland as of September 22 was 28,944, and that was open homeless cases in September, an 11% rise in the previous year, and that's actually the highest since records began in 2002 when LoCTA began. We also know that there are around 35,000 to 40,000 empty homes, according to data from the Scottish Government. It makes sense, doesn't it, to have a look at why those homes are empty and what we can do to reuse those homes. So in terms of Scotland, in terms of England, there are approximately 268,000 long-term empty homes, and that's vacant for 6 months or more, and that's according to the Ministry of Housing. And in Wales, there are around 28,000 empty homes, and that's according to the Welsh Government. So what we're trying to do now is look at those, look at the way that we can use the LoCTA Hub to find out who is actually in those homes. Well, the only way that we are going to be able to do that and get to the bottom of this is through partnership working. So LoCTA have been engaging in advocacy to raise awareness about the issue of empty homes, push for policy changes that encourage the use of vacant properties, including lobbying for increased investment in affordable housing and measures to bring empty homes back into use. Sorry, Sam, for just pinching that off you and the work that you do, but I just said it was better using the words that you've used in the past than me making my own up. In terms of what LoCTA are doing, so LoCTA are a huge important lead in all this, because obviously they've got it's in the heart to get this right. But that's where you come in as local authorities and empty homes officers, and where LoCTA comes in, because we've got the same heart as you and we want for the same thing. So if we look at what we can do in empty homes officers, many local councils in Scotland now have dedicated empty homes officers or teams responsible for identifying, working with owners of empty properties to bring them back into use. We're knowing that more and more authorities are looking at empty home loans. So some councils are offering loans or grants to property owners to renovate and make their empty properties habitable again. We do know that there are ways of doing compulsory purchase orders, and local authorities can use CPOs to purchase empty homes if the owners are unresponsive or unwilling to bring them back into use. There are incentives and taxation. So some regions offer incentives like reduced council tax rates for empty properties that have been renovated or actively marketed for sale or rent. So we also know that in some authorities, they're using higher council tax rates that can be imposed on those properties that have been left empty for an extended period. Now, I'm not sure if that's your experience within Scotland, and whether those sort of initiatives are being used. Maybe you could tell us. But there's also the community initiatives and community groups and organisations who play a role in addressing empty homes, working with those property owners and local authorities to find solutions. In terms of those, Is that your experience of what's happening? Anybody want to answer?
I mean, I would certainly say that many of those measures are in use in Scotland. I don't know if anyone else would have any comment to make, but
it would seem like it's almost a last resort, the compulsory purchase orders. Do any of you see many of those going through? I know that where I used to live, the house next door was becoming more and more run down. And I think the guy who owned it turned up once and he did a little bit of work and he was very, very grumpy about it. And he said, oh, the council are going to take it off me if I don't. And it was a house that had been left to him by his parents. The next thing I knew that there'd been a compulsory purchase order put on it, and it was sold and it was brought back into use like that. And that was in Trafford, and I believe that was almost a last resort for Trafford after really trying to get the gentleman to put some work into the house. In many ways, I was pleased because people had got into the home, not very often, but people had got in, I think, to probably strip it of things. But it was a great relief when it was sold. And it was a really, as a property, it did go back into private ownership.
Steve, we've got a couple of people put their hands up on this point. I believe Emma had her hand up first there.
No, that's fine. What I can do is I can switch back. My only worry is when I switch back, you all see each other. Is that okay? I usually get told off when I switch back, don't I, Jackie? Because everyone sees their face like really large and they all like complain and go, Steve, what are you doing? I'm like,
we could
but I'll do that. So yes,
we can either take comments just now, Steve, or if you like, we could leave it for the end of the presentation if that helps.
No, I'll take comments as we go along if you like, because we can just do that. Emma.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, I agree. I don't like seeing my big face on the screen, but I'll turn my camera off in 2 seconds. I manage the private sector team in North Ayrshire, and we have a small team who are responsible for property condition. So we do the tolerable standard inspections, and we spread empty homes across the officers. We have done 2 CPOs, and I have to say it's so time consuming. It costs so much, and in both cases, one of them was so we could purchase the rest of a block, where we'd managed to buy back 5 out of the 6, and so we CPO'd the 6th one. But it's still sitting empty because the council's not decided what it's going to do with it now that it's in council ownership. And the other one was a little button ben that neighbours lobbied for 20 years, and we demolished the button ben, but the cost to demolish far outweighs what the land's going to be worth when we go to sell it. So I think as a network and as across local authorities, we were anticipating the arrival of compulsory sales orders, because I think that's going to be a much easier tool, but I believe that some legal kind of details still to work out for that.
That's good. That's good. Do you have to lobby through for that? Is that got to go through an act of parliament then for the sales orders to be able to come into law?
Yeah.
It's always going to be time consuming.
Yeah. So we believed that before the pandemic they were nearly there with it, and then obviously that delayed everything. But I think that the official line is, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, is that they're working out the legal details and how they're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that would be a way to characterise it. Yeah, it's kind of being looked at is the way I would characterise it.
Yeah, good. Faye.
Hi, good morning. My name is Anne Fay. I'm from Glasgow City Council.
Sorry, Anne.
That's okay, that's no problem. Just that we do a lot of CPOs here in Glasgow. CPOs, we have quite a lot of empty homes there, but for CPOs they have to fall into, we don't have any local authority housing any longer. Everything's over to the registered social landlords. So we have to make sure we've got a back-to-back agreement with the local housing association. So that's not always as simple as it sounds, but we do push for CPOs, and we have a lot of CPOs. So But we have a dedicated solicitor here in Glasgow dealing with our CPOs, so that kind of smooths the process a bit. It makes things a bit easier. And the more you do, the easier it becomes. It does take a lot of work, a lot of time, but we've still got to keep batting on with it, unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be. It'd be better if we had CSOs as well, because we've got a lot of properties sitting where we can't do anything with. They're not suitable for CPO, and the only thing we could use really is CSOs. So we have a lot of properties there, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah, I think it's got to be. I think this is an evolving. This has obviously been recognised by Shelter for quite a long time, hasn't it? That this is a problem. Have you felt that there's been more of a move to that in the last couple of years? Has it been sort of like, has it been a slow moving, and then all of a sudden, like, it's now been decided that this really can solve a problem, or is it just seems to have come to the front in the last 12 months? Would that be fair?
Well, I'm quite new in the team. I've been here about 18 months, so I'm still learning. But I think it is from when I came on board, I thought CSOs were, were definitely going to happen. All of a sudden, that's been slipping over the last 18 months. But for us, the CPOs have been up. But we can't just ignore these properties. We have to do something with them. And quite often that owners just won't do anything. So, if there's an option there for CPO, we have to follow that through.
So I think I get to put a plug in now for our next event, which is on the 5th of December.
Yeah.
Where the excellent Glasgow team's going to do another one of their great CPO sessions for us. So please contact me if you haven't received a link to that.
No.
And the good thing, just about onto that, Stevie, the good thing is we got on board with Jackie, and we got LoCTA on board. Our council tax staff had LoCTA, so we were using them, but we weren't even sure what LoCTA was or what it could offer us. So we touch base with the managers and council tax, our managers here, touch base with Jackie. Jackie gave us a presentation, and it works great for us. We certainly see a massive benefit for the empty homes officers using LoCTA.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well,
yeah.
Oh, it's definitely will. We very, very pleased to be able to sort of like support the work in what you do, and show you how that is going to work. From that, so when we come to LoCTA and the empty homes and how we wanted to do it, first of all, there's a proactivity where your local authority is actively pursuing empty homes cases. There's, irrespective of any complaints made against the properties, through periodic letter writing, pursuit of owners and regular data cleansing, the authority attempts to engage with all empty homeowners at every opportunity. What we're trying to say is that you don't have to wait with LoCTA. What we can do, as soon as you get a little bit of intel to you, or you're made aware, or someone raises an issue, you can be really proactive. It doesn't have to get to a state whereby that house, you say people are hanging on and hanging on and hanging on, which is what they are doing. You don't have to wait to that state whereby the floor's collapsed. There's no danger to, the house next door if it's a semi-detached, because you can see often with these homes, not all the time, but often there's some substance. They might not have spent money on that home because there is so much work needed to be done to that home that people actually genuinely haven't got the money to do it. Might have been left to them from somebody who they, a great uncle who they've never really met, and it's actually almost like a millstone because they haven't got the money to do anything with it, and actually it's getting worse and worse, and it's boarded up and everything like that. But what we're trying to say is the proactivity in finding something where it's still in good working order, but someone has left it open for a few months, or left it empty for a few months, then there is a way proactively to be able to look at right away through LoCTA and find out instantaneously, who, what, where, and how you're going to be able to get hold of that person, and then do the really strong, the good work that you're doing, which we talked about before, of all those grants that may become available to them to support them in doing that they will not know that they're that's available to them. But also there's obviously a reactivity. So the local authority's empty homes work is predominantly based on complaints received, and we get that. And that's because in the past, probably there isn't, you're all very, very busy, and there wasn't as many designated staff perhaps, or there wasn't the time or staffing capabilities to really chase those, particularly as you say, if you've got such a long time waiting for CPOs and then with this the compulsory sales orders, there's not legislation yet. So some data cleansing is carried out, but the ability to conduct large-scale pursuit of all owners in the area is limited, so resources are focused on cases considered as a priority. That's a reactive way of doing it. We're going to encourage you obviously to do the proactive way as well, and we think that the way that LoCTA will work for you will help you do that. So what data, and in terms of when we're talking about LoCTA, the data available in the LoCTA Hub for empty homes officers. The legislation changed earlier this year regarding the empty homes officers accessing council tax data, and that's been confirmed as acceptable not only by our data processing but also Section 157 of the Housing Scotland Act now includes provision for empty homes officers to have viewed access to council tax records. And that really is where we are now, isn't it? Because that is sort of like the way now that your jobs can become a great deal easier, because if you can see that council tax data without having to go through requests, whether that's within your own departments, within your own authority, but also secondary and third authorities that may be quite a few miles away, but having to write to them, having to wait for a reply, having to put the right legislation in it, that is all done through you. So where the LoCTA Hub is vital for you is that legislation, that data sharing agreement already exists, and it exists between you all. So for all those local authorities that come on board within LoCTA, they sign the data sharing agreement, it goes through the legal departments, they agree to it, and that has all been gone through with a fine tooth comb. And once that is signed, that data for all those authorities is available to you. And that's the beauty of LoCTA, becomes that one great big data sharing agreement that means that you can look up instantaneously those things that you need to look up. So within the LoCTA Hub, what
Stevie, could I just say something there on that as well?
Absolutely, please
Certainly,
do.
just because I've been using it, when we were requesting from council tax information, that it's certainly better that we have the access to it, because you know what's going on in your head, you know your case inside out. So we're proactive in our cases. So when we find something, maybe give us a lead to look for something else. If somebody else is doing that check for us, like say council tax, another department, they don't really know what we're doing. They don't really know what other links may be connected, you know, a tenuous link. So having the LoCTA access definitely is beneficial. Certainly for us in Glasgow, we use it. I'm sure Jackie will be able to see that. We use it on a regular basis, the empty homes officers. But it's very beneficial to have your own access rather than somebody else doing it for you.
There's a flow, isn't there? When you're into a workflow and when you're trying to do something, if you're building up intel, and I'll show you how to do that on the LoCTA Hub, but if you're building up intel, and we call it saving to a profile, and you're saving that profile that you've got that access to, whether it's still online or you can take it offline, you can print it off and use coloured pens if you want, which is what I still do with my paperwork. Most of you are probably, most of you are a lot younger than me. I'm quite happy to work online still and save it to CSV files, or however you want to work, that is great. But like you said, there's a flow to your work. And if you're if you found a phone number and that's showing you a record, then you've got an email from that record, and then you can do further searches. Having to go back to somebody, maybe waiting for a reply 1, 2, 3 days, maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks in some cases, you cannot get anywhere. With the LoCTA Hub, thank you, Anne, for saying that. It's instantaneous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because within the LoCTA Hub, what we've got is we've got over 200 million records. So those 200 million records will show you a way of not having to access them all at once. But what you can do is then you can filter your searches and make them specific, and that's where the great benefit will come to you. So thank you very much for sharing that. So what we'll do is, within the data available within LoCTA Hub, there are council tax and business rates data belonging to all subscribing LAs, and that's including all of those of the Scottish authorities. So as you can see from our network of Scotland, you've got, I don't know if we had put a figure on it, did we, Jackie? But we were certainly well over 80%, and I think we worked out it was well over 90% of all records given the size of the authorities that we had, but we can certainly say that it's well over 80% of all council tax and business rates data. You've got the full voters roll, and the interesting bit about the full voters roll is in the past you just had to search for a name. You can now search for and look at the address and then look back at the address. There's a national telephone directories involved in that, national database of the deceased, postcode address files, company's house, and that's all within the LoCTA Hub. And what will happen is you will have a front page like this, and I'm going to show you that now. Apologies, just turned yourself off. So what happens is, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just show you where you would find those. So what will happen is, within the LoCTA Hub, you will have your own login, your own password, and you will tick the terms and conditions. And once you log in, now those terms and conditions are just one page of terms and conditions, and they basically are what you adhere to within your own work. And that is that LoCTA Hub is there to do the work of you that you do within your authority, and that you wouldn't share it outside anybody else without outside your authority. So for instance, a young lad joining, I don't know, an authority in Manchester would be told quite strictly not to look up any of his mates, and certainly if anybody rang up for information, he wouldn't give it them over the phone without knowing who they were, etc., etc. And from an authority, you don't do it. It's only there just to make sure that it works exactly the same way. So those terms and conditions you tick every time. Now, this is our training site, because not even we are allowed to see your data. That's how strictly LoCTA is adhered to here, and for safe reasons. So what you would do is you would open up that. Here at the front of it, it will give you any banners of any new and evolving and features that we're pushing at that time for your searches. I'm not going to go through all these now. I'm going to show you them, but then a little later on, after we've had a break, we'll do some specific searching on some of our training data, and you can ask us how you would look for certain things and how you would do it, and we'll show you how it works on the training data. So we'll do this, but what I wanted to show you is here along this. These are the searches that will be available to you. Now, one thing I would say is that you will not be able to see any benefits data. The benefits data isn't available. Benefits data is for benefits departments and benefits departments only, due to the DWP and the the national insurance numbers that are involved in it. It doesn't affect what you do. It's just for benefits. The benefits departments. But everything else would be available to you. And as you can see, what we've tried to do with the LoCTA Hub is make it a one-stop shop for you, so that anything that you can have outside, so you might use other links. And what we're saying to you, that those links are available through the LoCTA Hub. So if you want, you can right click on any of those to open the pages. And also with your LoCTA logins, you can open the LoCTA Hub as many times as you want. So if you're cutting and pasting information within the LoCTA Hub, within your different searches, you can do that, and it makes it easier for you. But you can also right click. So if you've got logins for any of these already, you just use your own logins. So it might be the Food Standards Agency, because Trading Standards are using it. It might be something that you're doing within a charity commission or LACF or whatever. You can use your own logins. You also got your own designated Scottish links for the Land Registry, Registry of Insolvencies, Assessors Association, etc. You can see that there, and the Scottish Landlord Register. And again, you can right click on that and it will take you to it. So you could open that link in a new tab. Okay. And there you've got the existing, you've got your Landlord Register that you can use. So within those searches, you've got, as I say, the telephone directory, the voters roll, a voters roll by address, deceased, address finder and company's house. When we're talking about the company's house, we can use LoCTA for the company's house first of all. So if we put in LoCTA and did a search, it would take us to our LoCTA. You've got some information there, can show additional records, but the beauty of it is then if you need to go to actually company's house, it will take you directly to that record within company's house. I think if you use the gov.uk website straight away and put in LoCTA, you get so many different answers. You can be trawling through pages and pages. Beauty of using that through LoCTA is that it will take you directly to that record. So those are the additional searches that we're going to show you, and we'll go through those. We'll go through those after the break. In terms of so why does that data help you? Well, having that data within LoCTA Hub certainly eliminates internal requests, which thanks very much. And has said how that can help you, but it allows you to search, allows a search of data for property owners' addresses. It's got a quick search facility involved in that. There are 7-in-1 LoCTA Plus searches and allows you to build a profile. So when we talk about that, that's where this comes in. So when we're doing those searches, you've got those additional searches there. So for instance, if you're doing a telephone directory search, what that can do is you will bring back and you can put in a surname or a company name. You can put in different ways of data, and what's every search that you've got, there's a question mark next to it, and that basically tells you what information you can need and how many different ways of searching there can be for you. So if you're getting stuck at any time, you can see that if you're going to do a telephone directory search, you can use a surname or company name or a surname, and you can use a wildcard, or you can use a company name, which is just 3 characters, and it will do searches for you. So the telephone directories that it searches are, in days gone by when I was young, the great big thick yellow pages used to come through, which used to be used as a doorstop for our larder, and the telephone book was quite thick. Now people tend to use their home phone number just for internet, and I think that's going away from it. But BT still do have a database of people, and that telephone directory can be used and can be quite useful when you're trying to find somebody that they may not even know that they've got a phone number there because they've not actually used it. So it might give you a phone number, but what it would do is having that phone number on there would give you an option to then do further searches, which again I'll come to. In terms of the voters roll, again, we see the voters roll, and again, it will tell you what information. You can use a forename or a surname, and you can do default searches. You can use a distance filter, and you can use a forename or surname just with 2 characters and a wildcard. So for instance, in our training, if I knew that I was looking for somebody called Matthew Wright, I can put that in and I can do a national search, or if I know that he's still local, I can go up to 20 miles and I can adjust that as starting big and coming down, or starting small and going larger. So I can use my Matthew Wright searches and use that. So your voters roll is useful there, and a voters roll by address. You can put in a house number and name, a street name, or a postcode only, which again can become quite useful in what you're doing. So for instance, if you only know that there's a postcode because somebody's told you that they think that that person now has a house on that estate, and you can get that, you could just put in the postcode and you can do a search, and that'll bring back, that's obviously our training data, we cut it down, but it will bring back those houses. And then what you can do then is you can go through them, but that'd be long and laborious, so we're going to show you quicker ways of doing that. But that could bring you back the person that's living at that address, and then you might be able to either add that to a profile to look at again, or you would come back to it and say, no, that's not the person we're looking for, because we've actually got a line. So in terms of the deceased data, someone might tell you that that person has passed away. Again, we've got deceased data in here, and again, it will tell you what the information you've needed there. So for this, you might just have so I'm going to put that one in. Someone might just tell you that this person was died in this area, and you can do a search, and what it will bring you back is those people that it knows that have passed away. And there's also a rating on our deceased. So what it will do is anything over 6 or above means that there's a death certificate been given for this person who lived at this address with a date of birth and a date of death. So you know that that might be the right person that you're looking for. And the fact that that's 6 or above tells you that it's actually been confirmed. The fact that these are higher means that it's been confirmed in more than one database, and it's been checked out with death certificates on more than one database. But you can have a look at that and see if that's the person that you're looking for. So the data, the deceased database, the address finder will show you on council tax address finder later, and again, as I've shown you on the company's house. So in terms of the LoCTA Hub, the searches are going to be hugely important for you on the additional searches, but obviously we're going to go through some of the LoCTA Plus searches after the break, because they're what you will do. That's how the information and the intel that you will have will start to build up. So in terms of
Steve, can I interrupt you?
Please do, yeah.
Yep. Someone's got a hand raised there.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Hi, sorry. I've just a very quick question.
Yeah.
Fife Council doesn't have full access to LoCTA, so we've got a number of free searches, and the thought would be that I would possibly do have a period of time where I'm just paying for my own searches. And I was wondering, when you're looking at the LoCTA, how often do if you're doing that search there for the deceased, and I click in to one of those, would that cost me 80 pence when I click in to every person that's listed there, or how? I'm just wondering what the kind of cost is, because that's what the way that we were thinking of doing it for the first wee while.
Can I take this question, Steve? Is that
Please.
Okay? Joanne, hi. Nice
Hiya.
to meet you in person. We've been emailing before.
Yeah.
Steve will show you the part of the system, I'm sure Anne will agree with me, which is called LoCTA Plus. So LoCTA Plus gives you the ability to do a 7-in-1 search. So it is a matter of you would use that part of the system rather than the individual search, which Steve is breaking down for you at the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
Answer to your question and cost, if it was a pay-as-you-go sort of license that was going forward, your LoCTA Plus, you could put the details for the 7 searches within there, and then it would come through on that respect. But if you did do a deceased search individually, yeah, and if it was a pay-as-you-go option that would go forward, then it would be individual search.
Okay. Yeah. And then if you click it, so what I'm just thinking, so that you had a list of people there that it could possibly be.
No,
sorry.
the results that come back,
Yeah.
once you enter in your search, that's
Right.
your click.
That's fine.
Then
Okay.
the results that come back, you would be able to view them, go in and out, analyse
under
it.
that one search.
Yes, yeah,
Brilliant.
under
Okay.
that one search.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Cheers.
I think the idea would be, when you start to realise, it's hard to, in our sort of environment, return of investment, ROI, it's rarely used because it's about sales, isn't it? Return of investment, you never think about that. But in terms of, I think we have to start thinking about when we're using such things as LoCTA, when things are available to us like that, are we actually going to save any money by using LoCTA? And you will save lots of money. I think there is a business case when you've used your searches and going forward and seen the success of it, that actually, because the LoCTA license is so relatively inexpensive, and I wouldn't even say relatively inexpensive, it's actually, as David Dickinson would have said, it's cheap as chips. And the reason why it is because it's been there for local authorities and used by local authorities for so long. We're here to support local authorities, not to make money. And that sounds absolutely daft and it sounds crass, but it's actually meant. We've come into it. My background for LoCTA was I'm a children and family social worker. I did my children and family social work degree and worked within schools and the Manchester inner city areas, including the Manchester gun strategy. And my heart was always in and has always been, you know, for the people of Manchester and to make sure that we get as many services, work with learning disabilities in the past. And I think LoCTA has got that social conscience and always had that social conscience that we're here to aid and support. Worked with shelter before, I've worked with lots of people before. We're here to support the local authorities to do the jobs. And that sometimes means that there are people trying to pull the wool over our eyes and deliberately defrauding. And that's where LoCTA is good, because those who are deliberately trying to, you know, cost money, LoCTA will help them find. We've got things in place for people who can't pay, and that's right. But for those who won't pay them, for those that we need to have a social conscience now, how we need to build up the public purse, LoCTA builds up the public purse. And I think what you'll find is that the LoCTA license in the end will be probably a much cheaper option for your local authority to purchase the full license, but we will work with you with that to make sure that that can happen, and as we do with everybody else. So what we want to do is make sure that we're supporting you within the work that you do. In terms of just going back to this, so what LoCTA is going to do is the LoCTA support you'll get from us is you will have a dedicated account manager, and Jackie's on hand all the time. So you will get full training for all users, and that's as bespoke as needed. What we're very keen to do is say that because everybody does different parts of different jobs and different projects that needed to be run, if at any time we'll roll out training to you, but if within your job role there is something that you need to do specifically, or you can always come back. If I'm available, Jackie's available. If you drop a line and say, look, if you've got 10 minutes now, can you come on board? I'm looking for someone. Can you show me the easiest way? I've hit a brick wall. You can come back to us and we'll jump online with you, jump online over Teams like we've done now, and just spend 10-15 minutes with you saying, okay, you put your screen up, we'll put our practice data up. This is how we would look for a person. What are the information? Here is a pathway that you could go by. So that bespoke training is always available to you, and we're always available for you when you need it. Refresher training is always good. You might get a project to do, and then you might not need to do a lot of search for another month or so, and then you've almost forgotten how you do it because it's not in the routine of your daily routine of working. So we'll always be available for refresher training. There's always access to the training site with dummy data for further practice and for that and refresher training. The thing is with LoCTA Hub, you can't break LoCTA. If you could break LoCTA, I would have probably done it, being the clumsiest person I know, but you can't break the LoCTA Hub. So you can use and you can practice on your full site when you're looking for people, or with people you've already found, to find additional information out so that you know it's correct. We've got access to video training links, which are always going to be available to you, and the user-friendly manuals. And also, as I've shown you, those question marks by those searches, which we'll go into detail with in a little while, but those question marks will give you all the details that you need to go into those searches so that you know you've got the right information for, and the limited information, if you've got it, how you can expand that. And that's always available from Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. The support is free of charge. Everything's free of charge. The only thing I would say is that in Scotland, you have different bank holidays to in England. So depending on which ones Jackie's working, I think that, you know, that's the only bank holiday that we might not be available. But apart from that, we'll always be available to you. Have you got any more questions at the moment? Because we could take our break now, actually, before you sit down and we show you some of the training, some of the searches that you would do and how you would do it and how you'd build up the profile. Does anybody who like to speak?
Just maybe curiosity, Steve, just I can tell me my own business if you want to, but what is the price for LoCTA for the local authorities?
How long's
Does
a
it
piece
depend?
of string?
Ah, right, okay.
But so that sounds facetious. I didn't mean it like that.
No, it's fine.
The easiest way to say it is that the LoCTA Hub license is based on your banding as an authority for a council on council tax.
Okay.
So if your banding is A or B, it's obviously cheaper. So a small authority for a LoCTA license for 12 months with unlimited users and unlimited searches and unlimited departments. So you could have, you could have 14 different departments with 10 users in each. You wouldn't be that small an authority if you had that many, but
Yeah.
say with a couple of users in each, we'd be talking about what, just under £3,000, Jackie? If it was a basic, if it was a small council with it'd be, so basically it's worked out on how many council tax absconders you'd find, really.
Right,
So for a small authority, if you found 1 to 2 council tax absconders, you will have completely paid for your license.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
12 months, and you would definitely find more than 2. And if we're doing it, what tends to happen is that we usually give a 3-month trial of LoCTA, and within those 3 months, the majority of authorities will find at least 2 council tax absconders, and that will more than cover the cost of the LoCTA license for the year. So it pays for itself.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can I just interrupt at this point? After today's session, if there is anybody that is interested on either expanding the licence that they currently have or looking at being part of LoCTA from day one, basically, we would offer a 3-month free trial. Now, there are local authorities that are here today that hold the full licence. So for yourself and yourselves at Glasgow have a full licence.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of yourselves being trained up and being given access to LoCTA. There was no negotiation and contract, shall we say. But the first point would be that we would offer any local authority who isn't in the situation of simply having their users trained and being given access a 3-month free trial. So yourself, Joanne, in respect to yourself, I can offer a 3-month free trial to expand the licence for Fife Council as a whole, and that would give you initial access. Then that will allow you to be trained up in the system and work with the system for 3 months. And then after that point, I would be able to show you exactly what starts, how it's been used, etc., and then we could move forward and take it from there. So just to make that clear to anyone, after today's session, the 3 months free trial will be available, and there's no obligation to carry on at the end of it. If your local authority already has some kind of agreement with us, we can revert back to the initial agreement, or we can negotiate or open up the contract, whatever would suit the individual officers. But saying that, we have to get agreement and authorisation from the department that initially set up the contract. So that would generally come under Revs and Bens council tax. So we'd need to get a Revs and Bens council tax contact involved as well. Okay, any questions? Sorry?
Well, it's just, yeah, I think the feedback I've had from some members of the network is that they've had a bit of an obstacle from revenue and benefits, because the revenue, for example, a revenue and benefits manager had thought that if an empty homes officer had access to LoCTA, that would be, an additional cost to the local authority. So that's been the example why at least a couple of members haven't been using LoCTA, because they've kind of been knocked back by their council tax team. Okay,
well, again, this opens up a door to contact myself. If you are experiencing those type of problems, I'm in contact on a regular basis, monthly basis, with my main contact at each local authority that holds a LoCTA licence. So it could be a case where I can give the reassurance if access has been granted and what terms. Obviously, the first thing that's going to be popping up is the question mark of cost. But I'm there as a support to be able to help and provide any information. Everyone should have my contact details from the Teams invite. but feel free to drop me an email at the end of the session if you want to discuss anything further. That's no problem at all. Okay.
Well, just to let attendees know, I plan to share your details, Jacqueline, just so that people have the LoCTA contact details there as well.
Fantastic. Perfect.
I think what Jackie said is absolutely right. I think where LoCTA's been brilliant over many, many years because, and we have over 98% retention rate of all local authorities that have come on board. I mean, for a couple of years rolled out, so 98% retention rate is phenomenal. So you can see that we're doing something right. What we were very good at was we were very good at supporting sort of high urbanisation areas because people tended to move over borders, you know, and move because your authorities are almost smaller geographically. In places like, say, Cornwall, for example, and you'll have some of it, we weren't, because people never moved out of Cornwall. They tended to, if people moved 12 to 19 miles, they were still in Cornwall, so Cornwall had their own data. What we found more and more, obviously, is, and it was happening before lockdown, but certainly since lockdown, and people working from home and people being able to get on Teams calls, they're moving further away. People are moving over borders. So, for instance, and they won't mind me saying, but in Norfolk, that used to happen exactly the same. Now we've got, in the last year, we've taken on board lots. Norwich City Council have come on board. The different authorities around Norfolk have come on board, and because people are moving further afield, and that's what we're adding data to it all the time. In terms of that, when they come on board from a council tax or a revs and bends perspective. They have never realised that actually the cost of that can be spread out. So whereas when we've gone to trading standards, say in the past, and trading standards, the CTSI conference come to us and said this would be absolutely fantastic for us. They've gone back into an authority and found that their authority have got it, and that information hasn't been shared. This is a company said, "Oh, we'd love to have LoCTA, but we haven't got the budget for it." Your authority has had it for years and is working quite happily with it. And actually, all I need to do is, as Jackie said, phone up our contact there and say, "Hi, your trading standards are coming on board. They'll only have access to this amount of information, but you're happy for that, and we're going to train them." And they go, "Yeah, of course." Whether then it's an internal conversation next year that they can throw into the LoCTA license, a few £100 from their own budget, is up to them. It's nothing to do with us. But it's just an example, like you say, of people not knowing that the LoCTA Hub is available for the entire authority at no extra cost in under the one license, and for all those users. So yeah, for those officers that have come back to you and asked that, it may already be there for them, and we can definitely broker that, can't we, Jax? I noticed, just wanted to thank Anna for this. What others have said about LoCTA. We use council tax systems every day to find alternative addresses, contact details for empty homeowners. So LoCTA has been a very useful extension for this. The whole Scottish Empty Homes Officers Network also uses the services to those companies to trace owners. It's a free service we get via the Scottish Empty Homes, but LoCTA might reduce the traffic to these very helpful companies, as I think they get inundated sometimes. I have a case where we are in the process of promoting a compulsory purchase order, the only statutory action available for empty homes officers. I did a LoCTA search last week for the litigation team to evidence the missing owner who had raised an objection. They were registered for council tax in another authority since 2009. I would have previously emailed my colleagues in council tax to carry out the search, but it was so useful being able to do it myself, as I knew exactly what I was looking for. I also used the links on LoCTA to Companies House. Although I already had them as shortcuts on my laptop, it was easy whilst I had it opened. So thank you very much for that testimony. And that's where I'm going to show you now, really, the parts of the job that you need to, how you would use it physically, practically, etc. And the
Steve,
sort of
is there meant to be, sorry to interrupt, are we meant to be seeing something on the screen, Steve?
Yeah, you are. Has it not shared?
No, it's not, sorry, yeah.
There you go. Right, okay. My apologies for that. So,
Can see it now, thanks.
okay. So thank you very much for that testimony. As I say, I've just, it's really important that, you know, you hear from fellow officers, etc., about who are using it, and that's how we want to share testimony. And in terms of how that would look, I'm going to show you now how you would do those searches, which is the most interesting bit for you. So as I said to you, how are you going to start searching for people? How is it going to be practical help for you? I'm going to log in again using terms and conditions. Let me just check back there, because maybe something's going ping.
Okay, that's
Is it not coming up?
it was, we could see your screen, Steve, yeah.
Can see it
Better.
now.
Yeah.
Right, great. Okay. So we talked about on the searches. What we tend to do is you might have nothing more than a phone number. Someone might pass you a phone number, and from that phone number, it might just be a mobile phone number of someone you're trying to, and they might be really elusive. You're trying to get hold of this person. They might be really difficult. They don't want to speak about this empty home. They don't want to know anything about it, but you need to know some more information. So what you can do is we've got at the top of your LoCTA Hub, we've got this quick search feature. On the quick search feature, it might be the starting point for all your searches. So you might have a phone number, and that phone number is just a string of numbers, and you can put in on your first or your quickest search, you can put in that string of numbers that you've been given, and on that you'll do that search, and that will come back and that will search all the records that we hold within the LoCTA Hub, within your authorities within Scotland, and it'll come back and it'll soon tell you that it's got 4 council tax results with that information on it. Now, once you open those up, you'll find that it'll tell you an authority and a secondary authority that might be yours, or it might be further away. If you need to check Watch Council online, there is a facility for doing that. But in terms of this now, we've got a phone number, we've put it in, and that unique phone number has been found on 4 records. What I will say is that people who are trying to avoid, and the council tax and those in revs and bends will tell you, people that are trying to avoid anything other than, you know, because they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes, they will use a SIM card that they've bought over the counter at Sainsbury's or over the counter at Tesco's, and they won't register it to their name because it doesn't apply to anything. So what they will do is they'll think, look, I've got a mobile phone number here, it hasn't got my name on it. I'm going to use it on records so that people can contact me if they need to, but they're not going to know it's me otherwise. So you might not have anything other than that, but that is a unique identifier for that person. And what that's done is they've had to register it previously, perhaps on 4 council tax records. So what you're going to do is you'll find that there's 1 record here in your own authority. For me, that's LoCTA Training Town. And for other people, they've had 3 records elsewhere. When I open the most recent one up, I found that it's got a green line down the side, and that means it's the most up-to-date, it's the most current, it's the latest record that we have on the system, and it still appears to be open. Now, I might not have that immediately because I might not know that that's the person I'm looking for. But what I might want to do is I might want to find out where else that person has been. So if they've moved into my authority and they now live there, that's fine. But have they actually owned other properties, and have they left those other properties? And by opening up the second 3 records, I can see a progression of where that person has been registered for council tax previously. Another great benefit to me is I can put a reference in there, and I can put a phone number in there, and that phone number will be looked at and on the refresh data every week and see if it comes up. So what I can do is, on my quick search is there, if that phone number hasn't appeared anywhere, or even if it has, I can make a reference for that person and I can add an alert, and LoCTA Hub will search in the background every week, and if that phone number is found, then I will get an email alert saying this phone number has popped up. It worked really well for we were using one of our authorities had given a grant out to a gentleman for a garage. He'd about 6 months later done a bunk, taking the grants with him. He didn't set up business properly. They put an alert on the phone number that he had and also on the email address, and 6 months later it appeared again in another authority. They were able to ring through to that authority and say, we've got somebody who's left here, they've appeared in your authority, would you like to you know, do you need any more information on it? And they just said, actually, they've just done exactly the same thing here. So that alert is really useful if you're trying to find out if that person's going to use that phone number again or the email address again. So what you've got here is you've got some information here and the council tax records of this person and some additional information. So we've now got an email address. We know the mobile address because that's what we put in, but we've got an email address, this person here. We've got an employer's address for this person and an old record. We've got other people that may have lived with him. Did they leave the house at the same time? So what we can do is we can go all the way back here to 2002. They know that this person lived at this address for 2 years. It was a shared occupation. It might have been a student occupation. This person didn't move out with them because they stayed there after, but Claire Stevens moved out on exactly the same day. So is Claire Stevens a person of interest? And you can do further searches on Claire Stevens if need be. So what you're trying to do is you're building up some intel on this person. So what you could do from that is you put in, as I say, a phone number. It's come back with those records. You can open those records. You can see that record is a current record, and you can add that to a profile. So you can start building up a profile of that person, whether individually, if you're doing that work, or as in a team. You could call it Matthew Wright MW1, add that to a profile. And then your profiles later you can come to. You can open up a profile, it'll tell you the profiles of the people that you've been searching for. And you can expand those results, and all the records that you may find are in one place. And then you can send those to print, or you can export to print, or you can work offline with them, or you can save them to your own desktop or your computer, however you store your information within your own authority policy. So those profiles are there. So in terms of that quick search, what we had there, as I say, was a phone number. We might have nothing more than an email address also. And again, email addresses, people tend to have email addresses that don't relate to them, but they need to put them on records. So you might have somebody calling themselves, you know, bigjim@hotmail.com. But once you put that in there in a search, any record that would be used for would come up on there. So let's try, if I put this in here now, I'm going to put a different number in here.
Steve, can I just suggest that you maybe enter in Deborah Harry at abc.co.uk?
Yeah, I was just going to do here like that one. Sorry, I just put that in. So I'll do it the other way around. So if we had, apologies for these names, whoever set the training system up was obviously obsessed with 80s pop stars. And so what we have there is we've got a phone, we've got an email address, and when we put the email address in, it will come up again with some results, council tax results, business rates results. As I say, I'm going to ignore the benefits results because you won't get to see that. You'll see if there are benefits results there, but that'd be grayed out. If you did want to investigate that further, you could go directly to your benefits department, and ask them. But in terms of this, you've got 3 council tax results and 1 business rates result. So what you'd see here is by opening this up, you can find out that there's no green line down there. So this is an all record. But from the information that you've got there, you can see that Deborah Harry has got a middle name of Amy, a maiden name of Jones. You've also got a phone number, a mobile phone number here. You can see that she's employed. And you can also find from the other records you've got a name, you've got to see where else she lives. So you've got a progression of that, and then you've got a current record. So you know that the 2 houses that she may have lived for, one of those homes may be the one that you're looking for that's empty. It may be that you've disappeared. There'll be an absconded status on it. If so, again, the same employer. You might have an employer, you've got somewhere there to have a look at. There's telephone numbers. And from these, if you wanted to take back and cut and paste that mobile phone number, again, you could put that back into the search there. See if there are any different records came up. So they either bring back, so you've got either additional records there, or you've got just the records that you've already found. But what I would say is that is a quick search if you've got nothing else to find. But what might be, you might have, more importantly, is you've just got a name and you're trying to search for a name. So what you want to do is, if you go into the council tax name, you've got a surname and a forename and a blank forename check, or you've got any of those that you can use. You may not know how many people are using a derivative of a name, or if they're using different spelling of a name, and that's where it can be quite tricky. So if you're trying to look for somebody, and you might know that they will go back to our favourite Matthew Wright, but you don't know if he's going by Matt Wright, Matthew Wright, Matty Wright, or if it's Mark Wright, you might just have an initial. But by putting that in there, you can actually put a wild card in, which is an asterisk, but you can put in, for derivatives of names, the one we use is I think the name Mohammed can be spelled 29 different ways. So if you need to try and find our way of finding a spelling. For Matty Wright, you don't know what he's put on different records, so leave it open. So you can put a first full name in, or you can put in an asterisk with a couple of just a couple of letters. You can also go back as far as you want. You might not know where somebody's lived, but you also might know that they actually were in your authority back in 2014 or 2015. If you know that, you can put your search start date back to perhaps 2013 if you knew they were in your authority at 2014, and that way you could bring up your record that you knew existed, find out the information from that, and then take that information from that and put in your other searches to get further information, to build up those profiles, build up that intel you wanted. I'm going to put that in from the year 2000 because, as I say, I've not got 200 million records within my training hub, so I'll be here all day. You can leave the search date open. You can leave, you don't want just live cases, you don't need exact matches. All you want to do is find out a Matty, Matthew, Mark, Wright, or whatever it's called, and I can do a national search. If you were looking for, I don't know, if you were looking for John Smith and you did a national search, you would be retired before you'd gone through them all. So you do need to at times think where I'm going to start with my search. Am I going to start just in my own authority and then widen the search? Or if it's a more unique sounding name, I'm going to do a distance search, and I can go as wide as I need to go. In this case, I've just gone through, put in some very basic information, and I've just gone and do a search. Now that will bring back all the records that derivative of name has been found in. So I can see here it's found 2 records in my own council and 2 9 miles away. If I open the 2 records in my local council now, I see they've both got green lines down them. I'm going to come back to that in a minute because I might not know they're there, or I might not know, but I'm going to look up the older records that I told you about. This might be my anchor record that I knew where this person lived. So if I knew that the last date or last place where this Matthew Wright that I'm looking for lived, I can see that some additional information there. There's 2 Matthew Wrights that it's found. And I can see that one lived at 7 Savile Road and one lived at 4 Savile Road. I don't need the 7 Savile Road because that isn't the person I'm looking for, because I knew that the person that I looked for is actually called Matthew Terence Wright. He lived at 4 Savile Road. He lived with Claire Stevens. This was an old record that we had, but I've got some unique identifiers there. It's unlikely that he's moved anywhere else and hooked up with somebody else called Claire Stevens, who lived at that address and left at the same time as him. So what I can now do is, knowing that additional information with a middle name and phone numbers, etc., I can go back to my current records and see there's a Matthew Wright living with a Claire Stevens still. There's somebody who's just no person of interest to me whatsoever. That's just that happens to have the same name. But this person was the record that I'm now looking for because it has a unique identifier on that council tax name. So in terms of having that council tax name, it's really useful to put that in. As I say, you can use a derivative or whatever. You can use a full name or not. We can, on the council tax address, you might also have, as I said before, you might just have somebody tell you some intel that the person that you're looking for moved away and that they live on an estate somewhere, or they live above a shop somewhere, or it might be, on the high street, nothing more than that. On the council tax address, again, you can put something simple in, just only a postcode. And what that can do, that postcode, it will bring you back all those postcodes with the council tax names and addresses on those postcodes. So what you can then do is you could go through those, and in the same way as I've just shown you, if you've got two names that look pretty much like they could be the right person, as we've just done, you could find out they're living at different addresses, but you can just check those two, do a continuation, and you've found those two latest records. So you can see, therefore, do you know which is the right person? You've got two there, you don't know which one is the right person, but again, you've got more information there that, again, you can take from that. You can cut and paste. So if you wanted to take that email address from there, so right, I'm going to see what records that email address has been used at, then you can go back to your quick search, put that in, and that'll bring the records back. Now, because you've used that, only that email address appertains to these council tax records. So again, you could have traced that person and all the places that person has lived up to. As you can see here, it'll go right back in time, right the way back, and your last record on there tells you the dates, that 2002 to 2004. So again, you can build up a profile of that person and build up the intel that you need if you're trying to find somebody. So again, one of the ways of doing your searches there is through council tax name we've shown, council tax address. There's a LoCTA Plus search or a business rate search. You could jump straight to the LoCTA Plus search, in which case you can put in as much information as you want down on this LoCTA Plus. So again, if I don't know much information, but I know that there's a spelling of another good thing about the LoCTA is that it's not case sensitive. So you can put your numbers in, or you can put your email addresses in, or your surnames in. It's not case sensitive at all. You just put them in, it'll find it. You don't need a date of birth on that. You don't need a street name, but the information that you've got is you knew a postcode where they used to live, or maybe where they might be living now. If you've got a postcode of where they used to live many years ago, put that in, because that'll bring back the anchor record, if you know what I mean, that you know that person was and where they were. And then that way, once you open that record, you'll have that additional information that we spoke about. So in terms of this, all we've got here is, and from my training data, that this Matty Wright or someone was at this address at one time. I'm going to need to search probably, because it's gone away for a long time. I'm going to go right the way back to year 2000. Again, you go back to where you need to go back to. You don't want live cases only. You're going to do a national search. You're going to select all. It won't bring you back that benefits search because you haven't got benefits data, so you can just uncheck that. But everything else now, just from that limited amount of information there, a part name, a surname, an old address, you do your search, and what it will do is it will bring back, if my internet's working, it's found 4 council tax names with similar to this. It's found 16 addresses with a postcode on it. It's found 92 deceased results. It's found 3 exact voters roll. It's found 76 matches. So again, you've got there some additional information to build up the profile to have a look at, and you can start wherever you want there by viewing those results. If you go back, I'm just going to think now, if when you're trying to do those additional things, you can also, you might have, you might be able to have some kind of company name or something. And on the business rates, what we would suggest you did is sometimes, giving an example of, say, trading standards, they get phone call in and they get a partial, half-baked sort of, oh, it was a taxi company, I think it had some letters before it or whatever. You could just put in on here, and I wouldn't suggest you did eat return, but if you just put in the partial name of that of the company that you knew and did a search on that, it will come back with a derivative of those names. So for us here, if somebody told us on our training site that there's a taxi company, you get somebody saying, oh, I was overcharged on a taxi, and I'm sure it didn't look quite right. You might have some letters or whatever for a bakery, or it might be that somebody who's working at I don't know, laundry or whatever. You can put in the partial name that you know, or you can put in the business you know, and then you can narrow your searches down. But for us here, what we could do is if we just even put taxi in there, which is the basic one on our training site, it would bring back some taxi companies within the search that I put in there. I can discount the ones that are further away because someone told me it was local, and I might have a business there that I can do an extra look at. And when I check that and then come back, it will tell me that it's found a record. And by opening that record, I can see that there was a record of a company called GHI Taxis. But that person probably wouldn't get it as wrong as ABC. So what I can do is have a look from that company, take the ratepayer's email address. And again, I can go back to my quick search and put in my quick search. And what that would do is that would search, and it's found 4 other business rate results. And when I open those business rates, I see it's actually the same ratepayer has got an account open, a latest record, and that is actually called ABC Taxis. There's the GHI taxes that are initially found, but he's also got ABC Taxis, and that will have some extra additional information within there. And I can also see that in a different area, he's got ABC Elite Cars and ABC Taxis. So there might be some additional information in there, but on my council tax results, and this is where it'd be useful to you, I can put in an alert on that email address to pop up anywhere else should they come anywhere else. But also on my council tax results, I've found 2 council tax results in my own authority. I've now got a middle name, which is a quite unique identifier. I've got an additional phone number which I can put in the records now, but I've also now got a current record of this person and where they now live. So I know that Jim Pop is at 92 Rowlands Close. I might have only known that many years ago he owned a taxi company called ABC Taxis, but what I've done is I've found out and used a trace for him to find out where he is now on his record that he's got open now in my authority. And there's some additional information there again that I can add to my profile, and then I can come back to my profile. So in that, again, that's a way of using from your LoCTA Plus or from your business rates a progression of information that you're going to do. For those of you, just to switch back, for those of you who use LoCTA now, what sort of searches are you doing now within your work that would be useful just to tell people about? How would you go about making that sort of progression? What information is your starting information when you're looking for somebody on the empty homes?
I would normally, Steve, I'll kind of come in first, Steve, if that's okay.
Yeah, please do.
I would normally always start with LoCTA Plus. I just go
Yep.
with whatever information I have and work from there. And depending on what I get, then do further searches. I do add profiles, so I can add people onto my profile, but I normally just save it by address. It's an address I'm looking at. Normally, the address is the main thing. That's the reason why I'm investigating whatever's going on. But certainly LoCTA Plus has been beneficial. I haven't used the business one as yet. I've had no reason to use that, but that means there is a lot of properties that's owned by businesses, so we could use, but I've just not had to use it as yet. But LoCTA Plus, I believe, is working well for me. And as I say, even in the team, we chat about it on a regular basis, and and it works well for the other girls as well.
Yeah.
Gives us loads of information, email addresses, phone numbers, other addresses, middle names, again, dates of birth, confirming deaths as well. Sometimes it's difficult to confirm a death. Somebody's told you somebody's died, an old person's died, and that's why the property's empty. No death certificate on the system. We have access to council tax to see that, but no death certificate. If I've gone on to LoCTA, I've confirmed a couple of times so far, the person is dead. It's maybe marked a 7 and an 8. So therefore, from what Jackie told you, same as yourself, there's been a death certificate if it's over a 6. So it's been good that way as well.
And that's really useful, because I think when we're doing to say, to go from what you've done, if you've done that search, if someone tells you that person's deceased,
yeah,
as I say, you can start from using our old friend again. So if we're just going to put this person in, so someone's told you this person's deceased, you put that in. What would it need to go? Where's Matthew Wright on this? On my training data, deceased. I thought it was Manchester.
IV 448TZ.
Is that what you're putting on now, and not Manchester?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if someone had given you that, and therefore you'd come up with so you'd have a starting. So what as I said there, so you've put in that, you've now seen that actually this is 6 and above, so there is a death certificate being given for that person, and you can add that to your profile. But you've now got confirmation of the date of birth and the date of death.
Yeah.
And so that is a really useful way of doing it. And as I say, on your LoCTA Plus, that would have brought that back exactly the same way. If by putting in that first name and surname, you've now got a date of birth you can actually put in, because you've got it off the death certificate. And so you've got additional information there that you can go through that. So that's a really good way of searching. The addresses, though, as you say, are most important. Do you ever have just a postcode that you can just put in?
Not really, no.
No. So you do have more information than that. That's
more
good.
information. And the other thing is, even find a deceased, you find a date of birth. If you're doing a CPO for a property, the more information the better, to say the person who owned that, it's a date of birth is whatever, and the date of death. So it's adding information for further down the line should there be a CPO or any enforcement action. So it's good that way as well. So it's got more than one use. Yeah,
I think you will find within everyone will have the favourite ways of doing it. I know for yourself, LoCTA Plus has been is your sort of go-to, and I think that's a great way to start. I think the more information that you've got that you can put in here, it will search that information out, and then you've got all your profile building over here from this side. And I think that's where the strength is of the LoCTA Hub. If you're starting off with very little because someone's giving you a scrap of paper with, I think this is the last known phone number, then great, you can go for your quick search and just see if anything comes back on there. But then you can always lift from that information that you've got, put it into your LoCTA Plus search. And then
Steve, can I just add to that, please?
Absolutely.
Back in what Anne says there about LoCTA Plus, the way that I see LoCTA, and there is no rules about how you use LoCTA, you will find your own way. And Anne and I had a training session. I based my training session on LoCTA Plus, the quick search and the business rate side of things.
Yeah.
LoCTA Plus can be used as a single search tool or a multiple search tool. But if you're starting off, your ground zero may be the address of the property, the empty home itself. You enter that in there. you then try and build a picture. So every time you obtain another little bit of information, say there's an email address or a mobile number, you can work with 2 LoCTA windows as well. I would highly recommend that. So having a secondary LoCTA window open, anything that you actually find, you can then go back to LoCTA Plus and add more information and then try and narrow down to where the person is now. So it's all about building a picture for yourselves, majority of the time working with minimal information because you only have the property empty homes address, and then seeing what else you can pull from LoCTA. I also recommend when using LoCTA Plus in tandem, and this is I don't know if I told you this because I changed my training slightly recently. If you're searching a council tax address search, automatically do a voter roll search. So you're then hitting 2 data sets at one point. If it's an address, it's going to bring back everything that's related to that address through the voter roll and through the council tax records as well. The more experience you gain with the system, you'll find your own way of using it, and eventually you'll be discovering ways to use LoCTA better than what I could ever demonstrate or Steve could ever demonstrate, because yous are the ones that have the investigative minds. We can simply show you what the system does, but in terms of how you use it as individuals, you'll adopt your own way. Thanks for contributing there, Anne. It was a handy point with LoCTA Plus. Is there anyone else that's been using LoCTA that's on the session at the moment? Alana? Hi, Alana.
Hi guys, yeah, Jackie will tell you, I'm a proper promoter of LoCTA. I think it's the best thing ever. Literally, it has, from an empty homes perspective, it really has, like, I've got owners who I just have no details for in our council tax records. I'm currently actually waiting on another, I've used the link where you can click contact the council to ask if they've got any contact details of other councils. Of some of them I'm trying to find as well just now. And honestly, I think, I think every council should just sign up to it. Unlimited use. I'm like the biggest promoter for this, honestly.
Oh, it's really nice of you to say. I think from what Jackie's saying there, and from what you're saying, if you use the voters roll, if you just put in the voters roll, their name, and then do your search, it comes back with your address. Or on another window, then you can take that address and do that search. If you've only got that, it'll bring back the record that you're looking for, and then you can continue with that, and it'll tell you who's living in that address. So it might be that you start with your voters roll by address, like you've said. If you haven't got nothing more than that, you've got an empty property, you put in the voters roll, it'll bring back a record. You can see who's at that address, if there are additional occupants there, and then from that you can then go back and do your additional searches. So I'm really glad that you're finding so much use for it in the way that is useful to you, because as individuals you'll have your own ways of working, but you also have your own sort of remits for your job and what you need to do, and you will find the right way of doing that. And that's where Jackie will come in and sort of say, okay, if this is your job, then this is where I would start. This is where, if I were you, this is where I would start with your searches, because it will just depend on what actually you're looking for and how you're looking for. But all these are available, all these searches are there for a reason. Everyone starts at a different point for you. So that's basically on that. Basically that's what the LoCTA Hub training site is for. But for you, you'll have so many more records there. So just to finish off, really, we're told there's a housing crisis, and we're told we need more affordable homes. But that's great being told that, and these politicians spouting all that. But it's you that's going to be left, and you have been left with solving the problem and told to do it. And what we would like to do as LoCTA is just support you in trying to do just that by helping you find those who own the empty properties quickly and efficiently, so you can work to persuade them by bringing that property back into reuse for rent, lease or sale to a housing association, or to privately make sense to both them, the community, and most importantly, those who need homes. So as I say, just thank you very much for your time today. We'll take any more questions now But as we've reiterated, if for those of you who are LoCTA advocates, thank you very, very much.